Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast where we make English learning easier and, most importantly, enjoyable. I'm Adam, and I'm here as always with my wonderful co-host, Julia.
Hello to all our amazing listeners out there. We're really excited that you're joining us today because we have a very special and practical topic to discuss that will really help you on your journey to becoming fluent in English. Today, we're going to explore a strategy that can make a huge difference in your speaking confidence and overall fluency. That strategy is learning how to think in English. This is a skill that once you start building it, will help you feel much more natural and comfortable every time you speak in English, whether you're talking to a friend, a colleague, or even someone you just met.
So, let's start by talking about what we actually mean when we say thinking in English. It might sound a little strange at first, because we're so used to thinking in our own language without even realizing it. But thinking in English simply means getting into the habit of forming your thoughts in English before you speak them out loud. Instead of translating from your native language into English, you learn to think directly in English. And the reason this is so powerful is because it can save you a lot of time and reduce mistakes. Imagine being able to form sentences in English naturally, just as you would in your native language. You'll start noticing that you can respond more quickly, more accurately, and with more confidence because you're already thinking in the language you want to speak.
Exactly. And one of the biggest benefits of learning to think in English is that it helps make conversations feel more natural. A lot of English learners feel nervous when they have to speak because they're worried about getting the words right, or they're afraid of making mistakes. And that's completely normal. But when you train your brain to think in English, you're creating a kind of shortcut in your mind. You don't need to translate everything from your own language anymore. Instead, you're already forming ideas and sentences in English, so when it's time to speak, it feels much easier. The words are already there, and you just have to say them. This is what helps you feel more confident and connected in conversations, which is such a rewarding feeling.
Yes, and we're here to guide you step by step through this process of learning to think in English. So today, we'll be covering a lot of really helpful, practical strategies that you can start using right away. Here's a quick preview of what we'll be diving into together. First, we'll talk about why thinking in English is such an important part of fluency and how it really speeds up your progress. Then, we'll share some effective, easy-to-try steps for starting to think in English in your daily life. And to make it as practical as possible, we'll walk you through a few exercises and give examples that will help you get started and keep going.
Right, so even if you're just starting to learn English, don't worry. The tips we're going to share are perfect for beginners and really anyone who wants to improve their fluency and confidence in speaking English. We'll be covering small changes you can make in your daily routine that will help you build this skill over time. We'll even throw in some tips for staying motivated so you don't give up when it feels challenging. So, whether you're listening on your commute, at home, or maybe even at the gym, we hope you'll stay with us until the end, because we're really excited to share these ideas with you.
Absolutely, Julia. I think the key here is that thinking in English is something you can start practicing little by little. It's not something you need to be perfect at right away. Instead, it's a skill you build slowly, step by step, until it becomes natural for you. So if you're ready, let's dive into today's episode and start building those skills that will help you feel more confident and fluent in English.
Let's get started. I know it can feel like a big step, but don't worry. Adam and I are here to guide you every step of the way. So grab a notebook if you want to take notes, and let's jump into the world of thinking in English. Now that we've introduced the idea of thinking in English, let's dive deeper into why it's so important for improving fluency. When we're learning a new language, it's natural to want to translate everything from our native language into English. But this can actually slow us down and make us feel a little more nervous. Imagine if every time you wanted to say something, you first had to think in your native language, translate it, check if it sounds correct, and then, finally, speak. That's a lot of work. But when you start thinking directly in English, it's almost like you're creating a new English mode in your brain. You can think and speak without needing to translate, which makes your responses faster, and that's a big step toward fluency.
Exactly, Julia. When you're thinking in English, you're cutting out that translation step, which allows you to communicate more naturally. One big advantage is that it reduces what we call mental processing time. That's the time your brain needs to go through each step of translation. For example, if you're in a conversation and someone asks you a question, you'll be able to respond quickly without having to pause and translate in your head. This makes conversations feel more comfortable, and the other person will notice that you're able to respond right away, which can really help you connect with people.
Right. And thinking in English also helps you get used to the rhythm and flow of the language. Every language has its own unique way of structuring sentences and expressing ideas. When you're thinking in English, you start to pick up on these patterns naturally, like where to place certain words or which expressions to use. Over time, you'll find that you don't have to consciously think about grammar rules as much because you're starting to feel what sounds right in English. And that's something you can only develop by practicing thinking directly in English.
Yes, and another benefit is that it can really build your confidence. A lot of people feel nervous about speaking in English because they worry they'll make a mistake or get stuck finding the right word. But when you're practicing thinking in English, you're actually preparing your brain to respond more confidently. You're giving yourself a safe space to practice forming sentences, choosing words, and building thoughts in English. This mental practice can go a long way in making you feel more at ease when you're speaking with others.
And let's not forget, it's also a huge time saver. Imagine all the time and effort you'll save by not having to go through that mental translation process every time you speak. You'll be able to respond more naturally, just like you do in your native language. And over time, this helps you feel more at home with English, making it feel like a part of who you are, rather than just a skill you're learning.
Let's make this idea a little more practical with an example. Think about a simple sentence like, I am going to the store. When you're thinking in English, this sentence becomes automatic. You don't have to break it down word by word. You don't have to think, okay, what's the word for store in English? Or, how do I say going to? Instead, you just think, I am going to the store. And the words come out naturally. It's like when you're in your native language, certain phrases or sentences just feel like second nature.
Exactly. And this can really make everyday situations much easier. For example, let's say you're ordering food at a restaurant. If you're already in the habit of thinking in English, phrases like, can I get a, or I would like to order, come to mind without you needing to translate each part. It's so much more relaxing and enjoyable to be in situations like these when you don't have to spend time figuring out what to say, but instead, the words are right there in your mind.
Another example is when you're meeting someone for the first time. Instead of mentally preparing what you want to say and translating in your head, you can focus on the interaction itself, making eye contact, smiling, and really being present in the moment. Thinking in English helps you get into the flow of the conversation more naturally. So when the other person says, "Hi, nice to meet you," you're already ready to say, "Nice to meet you too," without having to think about each word.
Actually, I'd like to share a personal story that might resonate with some of our listeners. When I first moved to an English-speaking country, I faced some real challenges with thinking and speaking in English. I remember one time I was in a grocery store and wanted to ask where the milk was. In my mind, I started forming the question in my native language, but when I tried to translate it, I got completely stuck. It was like my mind froze, and I felt so embarrassed that I ended up just walking around until I found it myself.
Oh, I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling, Julia. It's like you know what you want to say, but the translation part just makes everything so much harder.
Exactly. So after that experience, I decided to make a change. I started practicing thinking in English for small things like, what do I need to buy, or where should I go next? And it really helped. One day, I was back in the same grocery store, and this time, I needed help finding bread. I didn't pause to translate, I just went up to a staff member and said, "Excuse me, where can I find the bread?" And it felt so natural. The conversation was easy, and I felt really proud of myself. This small step made me realize how powerful thinking in English can be. It's a gradual process, but each time you use it in real life, it gives you more confidence to keep going.
That's such a great story, Julia, and it really highlights the difference that thinking in English can make in everyday situations. Even small steps like these can add up over time, building your comfort level and helping you respond without hesitation. So, to all our listeners, don't be afraid to start small, just like Julia did. Practice thinking in English when you're at the store, getting ready for the day, or even just planning what to cook for dinner. These simple moments are perfect opportunities to train your mind.
Yes, and remember everyone, it's a journey. You don't need to be perfect at it right away. But with each practice, you're training your brain to work more comfortably in English, one step at a time. So whether it's a simple sentence or a quick conversation, every moment you spend thinking in English is bringing you closer to fluency. One of the best ways to start thinking in English is to keep it really simple. Begin with basic, everyday phrases. You don't need to create complicated sentences right away. Let's say you're feeling hungry. Try saying to yourself, "I'm hungry." Or, if it's the end of the day, think, "I'm going to bed." These small phrases can become a powerful habit. When I started learning English, I used to do this all the time. I would think of simple things like, "I need to get some water," or "It's time for a shower." Eventually, these phrases became natural to me, almost like they were part of my regular thinking process.
Yes, and I'd also add that it's totally fine to use very short, even 1 or 2 word sentences when you're first starting. For example, if you're tired, just say to yourself, "Tired." If you're happy, just think, "Happy." These single words might seem too basic, but they're actually helping your brain get used to switching to English without stress. Over time, you can build up from single words to full sentences, but starting small like this is a great way to ease into thinking in English.
Exactly, Adam. So, for everyone listening, make it a goal to pick a few simple phrases or words and use them in your daily thoughts. It's not about being perfect, it's about starting a habit. Once your brain is comfortable with simple phrases, it will be much easier to move on to more complex sentences.
Another useful tip is to narrate your day in English. Think of it as a mini story that you tell yourself as you go about your routine. For example, if you're brushing your teeth, say to yourself, "I'm brushing my teeth." If you're eating breakfast, think, "I'm eating breakfast." You're just describing what you're doing in simple terms, but this kind of self-narration can be very powerful for building your comfort with English.
Yes, and it's like you're creating a mental diary of your day, but in English. At first, it might feel a bit strange or repetitive, but that's okay. The goal here is to make English a natural part of your thoughts. I used to do this when I was learning, and it became almost automatic. I'd think things like, "I'm taking the bus now," or "I'm walking to the store." You're training your brain to process English, even for the simplest activities.
Absolutely. And this practice also helps with vocabulary because you're constantly using new words based on your environment. You're reinforcing basic vocabulary, like brush, teeth, breakfast, and over time, you'll start noticing that these words come to you automatically. It's like building up a mental dictionary that you can access without even thinking.
A great way to think in English is to replace your native language thoughts with English ones for everyday activities. For example, when you're counting money, try to think in English. Or if you're reading a street sign, read it in English. Even if it's a small thought like, "I need to buy apples," use English for it. These are small, common thoughts that you probably have every day, and by making them part of your English practice, you're building a habit.
Exactly. And this applies to things like making lists, too. Try to make your shopping list in English or organize your to-do list in English. Even if it feels a bit awkward at first, you're training yourself to automatically switch to English for these little daily tasks. I've known people who even set their phone language to English to reinforce this habit, so they're seeing and using English every time they check their phone.
I did that too. And it really helps because you're constantly exposed to English phrases and vocabulary. It's amazing how many everyday things you can turn into English practice, things you wouldn't normally think about as study time. For instance, when I was learning, I'd look at a menu or a product label and think about how I'd say it in English. Over time, you find that English just starts to feel more natural.
Another effective way to get comfortable with thinking in English is to ask yourself simple questions. These can be things like, what should I wear today? Or, what do I need to buy at the store? When you ask yourself questions, you're actively engaging with the language and building your confidence. It's like having a mini conversation with yourself.
Yes. And even small questions like, what time is it? Or, where did I put my keys? Can make a difference. By forming questions in English, you're practicing how to think quickly and respond, which is really helpful for when you're in real conversations with others. You're preparing your mind to think and act in English, almost like you're rehearsing.
Right. And you can also challenge yourself by answering these questions in English. So, for example, if you ask, what should I wear today? You can answer with, I'll wear my blue shirt. It's a simple exercise, but it's very effective. The more you practice, the more natural it will feel to ask and answer in English without needing to translate.
Another helpful tip is to use English to plan your daily routine. For example, in the morning, you could think, today I'll go to the gym at 5 p.m. or I'll meet my friend at 6 p.m. By using English to plan your day, you're training yourself to think about your activities and goals in English.
Yes, this is a great practice. You can even write down your schedule in English. If you have a planner or a calendar, try making notes in English. For example, dentist appointment at 3 p.m. or buy groceries in the afternoon. It doesn't have to be perfect. The point is to make English part of your daily planning so that it feels natural.
Exactly. And over time, this habit becomes automatic. You'll find that as you plan your day, you'll start thinking about all your tasks in English without even realizing it. This practice helps you use English in real-life situations, which makes it feel less like studying and more like something you're doing naturally.
A great way to build vocabulary while thinking in English is to use mental flashcards. Here's how it works. Think of a word in your native language, and then quickly translate it in your mind to English. This can be anything you see around you or random words that come to mind.
I love this method. It's like a mental exercise, and it really challenges your brain. For example, if you're thinking of the word book in your native language, just think book in English. Or if you're thinking of a color, translate it to English in your mind. This practice helps you build vocabulary without needing a dictionary or any tools. You're training yourself to make those connections quickly.
Exactly. And you can do this anywhere, while you're walking, sitting on the bus, or even waiting in line. The more you practice, the faster your brain will get at finding the English words, which is really helpful for fluency.
Watching English content like movies, TV shows, or YouTube videos is a fantastic way to practice. But instead of just watching, try to actively think along with the dialogue. Listen to how people phrase things, pay attention to their expressions, and imagine how you'd say something similar.
Yes, and you can even repeat phrases or sentences in your mind to reinforce them. For example, if a character says, "I'll be right back," you can repeat it in your head and think about when you might use that phrase. It's a way to get familiar with common expressions and practice how they sound.
And if you want to challenge yourself even more, you can pause the video and try to predict what the character will say next. Or, after watching a scene, summarize it to yourself in English. These exercises not only help you think in English, but also improve your listening and speaking skills. All right, everyone. Here's a little challenge for you. Look around you right now and think of 3 things you see. Then, describe them in English. For example, if you see a coffee cup, you might say, "There is a blue coffee cup on my desk." Or, if you see a window, say, "The window is open."
The more confident you'll become at thinking in English. It's a small practice, but it can have a big impact on how natural English feels in your mind. Plus, it's a fun way to get used to forming sentences without needing anyone else around.
Exactly. And remember, you don't need to be perfect. The goal here is just to get your brain used to English in everyday life. Even if you make mistakes or forget certain words, that's totally okay. Over time, this small habit of describing what you see will help you build vocabulary and confidence. So, take a few seconds each day to look around and describe 3 things in English. It's simple but very effective.
And if you're feeling up for a challenge, try adding more detail. Instead of just saying, "There's a book on the table," you could say, "There's a thick red book on the table that looks very interesting." Adding small descriptions like color or size helps you practice more vocabulary and makes the exercise even more useful.
That's a great idea, Adam. The more you describe, the more natural it becomes to think in full sentences. And if you're really comfortable, you can even expand it to describe actions. For instance, the cat is sleeping on the couch and the sun is shining on its fur. Just have fun with it and see what comes naturally.
So to everyone listening, we encourage you to make this part of your routine. It only takes a minute, but it really helps you train your brain to think in English. And once you get comfortable with these small descriptions, you can try describing your feelings or even imagining small stories in English.
All right, everyone. Those were our top tips to help you start thinking in English. Just remember, the goal isn't to translate everything perfectly or to be flawless. The goal is to create a habit where English feels natural and part of your daily thoughts. Small steps like using simple phrases, narrating your actions, and describing what you see can make a big difference.
Absolutely, Julia. And for anyone out there who's just beginning, keep in mind that it's a gradual process. You don't need to rush. Take it step by step, and don't be hard on yourself if you don't see progress immediately. Thinking in a new language takes time, but with these simple techniques, it will start to feel more and more natural.
And remember, thinking in English isn't something you need to set aside extra time for. You can do it anywhere, anytime. Just keep incorporating English into your thoughts as much as you can. Over time, you'll notice that it gets easier and even feels fun. So, give it a try and be consistent.
We hope these tips have been helpful. Start with small actions today and let yourself progress naturally. And as always, feel free to share your experiences with us. We love hearing how these strategies work for you.
Thank you all for tuning in and taking this journey with us. Remember, every small step you take is helping you grow in your English journey. Keep practicing, keep pushing, and enjoy the process.
So, let's start with a powerful technique called shadowing. Now, you might be wondering, what exactly is shadowing? Well, shadowing is when you listen closely to an English speaker. This could be someone from a video, an audio recording, or even a podcast like this one, and you repeat everything they say almost instantly, as if you're their shadow. The idea is to try to match not only the words, but also their tone, pace, and even the small details of how they speak. And shadowing can be incredibly effective for helping you sound more fluent. When you practice this way, you're training your mouth, your mind, and your ears to work together. It's not just about understanding the words, it's about hearing the rhythm and flow of how English is spoken naturally. Start with short phrases or sentences. You don't need to go fast. It's better to start slowly, then gradually speed up as you feel more comfortable. Over time, you'll notice that your ability to keep up with native speakers improves significantly.
And the great thing is, you can choose any material you like to shadow. If you're a beginner, I recommend using videos or podcasts where the speakers talk a bit slower and use clear pronunciation. If you're more advanced, you could even shadow movies or TV shows. Just choose something that's at your level and try to practice for at least a few minutes each day.
Now, the second exercise might sound a bit unusual at first, but I promise it's really effective. It's called self-talk. All you need to do is talk to yourself. In English. You can do this anywhere. In your room, on a walk, or even while cooking. Describe what you're doing or what's happening around you. For example, say, "I'm washing the dishes," or "I'm preparing my breakfast." The goal is to make English feel natural, like it's part of your everyday life.
And don't worry about feeling silly. Self-talk is a fantastic way to practice forming sentences and using vocabulary. It helps you build confidence because you're getting comfortable hearing your own voice in English. You can also pretend you're having a conversation with someone. Maybe ask yourself questions and answer them, like, "What should I do today?" or "How was my day?" Over time, this habit will help you think in English without hesitation.
Yes. And if you ever feel stuck, just remind yourself that this is practice. You don't need to be perfect, and there's no pressure. It's just about helping your brain get used to forming sentences and expressing thoughts in English. Start with simple sentences, and as you improve, try adding more detail. For example, instead of just saying, "I'm eating breakfast," you could say, "I'm eating a bowl of cereal with fresh strawberries and milk." Adding these little details can help you build your vocabulary naturally.
Another great exercise is keeping an English journal. And don't worry, this doesn't have to be a big time-consuming task. You don't need to write a long essay every day. Just a few sentences about your day or your thoughts is enough. For example, you could write about what you did, how you felt, or something interesting you saw or learned. It's all about creating a regular habit of expressing yourself in English.
Exactly. Writing in English helps you organize your thoughts and think carefully about the words you're using. Over time, it also shows you the progress you're making. Imagine looking back at your journal after a few months and seeing how much better your writing has become. And if you're a beginner, don't worry about making mistakes. This journal is for you, so there's no need to be perfect. Just focus on putting your thoughts into words, and don't be afraid to look up new words if you need to.
And here's a tip. If you're unsure what to write, start with prompts. You could write about what you're grateful for, describe a favorite memory, or even imagine what your dream day would look like. Prompts can help spark ideas and make journaling feel easier, especially on days when you don't know what to write about.
Now, let's move on to the next exercise, which is about imagining conversations. This is a fun exercise that lets you create scenarios in your mind. Think about common situations you might be in, like talking to a friend about their day, ordering food at a restaurant, or asking for directions. In your mind, imagine what you would say and how the other person might respond.
This exercise is great because it's a way of practicing speaking without actually needing another person. You can imagine different conversations in any context. For example, if you're thinking about a weekend trip, imagine telling a friend about your plans. What would you say? Or if you see something interesting, imagine describing it to someone. This way, you're practicing vocabulary and sentence structure, and you're training your mind to be ready for real conversations.
And to take it a step further, you can imagine specific responses too. Think of how someone might ask you questions about what you just said, and imagine yourself answering. This exercise builds confidence because you're mentally preparing for situations that might come up in real life. And the more you practice, the more comfortable you'll feel speaking in English when the real situation arrives.
All right, let's show everyone how these exercises might work in a simple conversation. Let's imagine we're having a chat about our weekend plans.
Sounds good. So, Julia, what are you planning to do this weekend?
Well, I'm thinking about going to the beach. The weather is supposed to be really nice, so I might go with some friends and relax. How about you, Adam?
That sounds like a lot of fun. I actually have a family gathering on Saturday. We're planning to have a barbecue and spend time together. I think it'll be a good chance to catch up with everyone. So, are you going to try surfing at the beach?
I might. I haven't done it in a while, but it would be fun to try again. I remember the first time I tried surfing. It was so challenging, but also exciting. Have you ever tried surfing, Adam?
No, I haven't tried it yet, but it's something I'd like to do one day. I think it would be a great experience. I'd probably start with just sitting on the board and getting used to the waves.
That's a good idea. It takes time to get comfortable, but once you get the hang of it, it's so much fun. So, everyone listening, this is an example of a simple conversation you can practice on your own. Think about a weekend activity you enjoy and imagine telling someone about it. It's a great way to prepare for real-life conversations.
And if you're listening at home, try creating similar conversations. Pick a topic you enjoy and imagine what you would say about it. The more you practice, the easier and more natural it will feel. With these exercises, you'll gradually build up your fluency and confidence in speaking English.
Absolutely. And remember, the key is consistency. Try to do these exercises regularly, even if it's just a few minutes each day. With time, you'll notice that thinking and speaking in English will feel more natural and comfortable. Just keep practicing and enjoying the process.
All right, that's it for this section on practical exercises. We hope these tips are helpful, and we encourage you to try each one and see what works best for you. Remember, fluency is a journey, and every step you take brings you closer to your goal.
Thanks for joining us in this section, everyone. We can't wait to hear about your progress. Stay motivated and keep practicing. You've got this. All right, everyone, let's put some of what we've talked about into practice. This part is going to be interactive, so if you're in a place where you can speak out loud, I encourage you to really engage with this exercise. If you're in a quiet place or can't speak out loud, that's okay too. You can answer these questions in your mind. Now, the goal is to get you thinking and responding in English, just as if we were having a conversation together.
So, let's begin with a simple question to warm up. Take a moment to think, and then either answer out loud or in your head. Ready? Here's the first question. What is your favorite color? Take a moment, think in English, and then try saying your answer as if you were talking to a friend.
Great. Now let's try another question. This one's about something you've done recently. What did you eat for breakfast today? Think about what you had and try to describe it with as much detail as you can. For example, if you had eggs and toast, maybe add in a bit more. I had scrambled eggs with a little bit of cheese and some toast with butter. Practicing details will help you build confidence in describing everyday things.
Nice job. All right, let's move on to a few more questions. These might seem simple, but the idea is to practice thinking in English, even for things you know well. Here's another one. What is your favorite season of the year, and why? Take a moment to think about the season you enjoy most and explain why. For example, you could say, I love spring because the flowers are blooming and the weather is warm but not too hot. Remember, the more you practice, the more comfortable you'll feel.
And here's one more question for you to practice with. Imagine someone just asked you this. What is one of your favorite hobbies, and how did you get into it? Take your time to think in English, and then describe your hobby, and maybe share a bit about how or why you started. For example, you could say, I enjoy painting because it helps me relax. I started painting a few years ago after taking an art class. This is great practice for real conversations, where you can share a bit more about yourself.
Fantastic. We hope you're finding this helpful. Practicing with these simple questions will make it easier to respond quickly in English when you're talking with others. You can always come back to this section to practice, or even make up your own questions and answers to expand your comfort with English.
Now that we've done a bit of practice, let's take a moment to reflect on how it felt. We're going to ask you a few questions about your experience. Feel free to pause and think about your answers. Reflecting on how it felt to think and respond in English can really help you understand your progress and identify any areas where you might want to focus more.
All right, first question. How did it feel to answer questions in English? Did you feel comfortable, or did you notice any hesitation? Sometimes people feel a bit nervous, and that's completely normal. The more you practice, the more natural it will feel, but it's helpful to take note of how you feel during these exercises.
And here's another reflection question. Did you find it challenging to think of words quickly, or did the answers come to you easily? If you felt a bit stuck, don't worry. That's common for many learners. The goal is to gradually build your fluency. So even if it felt challenging, remember that each bit of practice helps.
One more question to think about. Did you have fun answering these questions? Sometimes, practicing a language can feel like work, but it can also be really enjoyable. Finding ways to make it fun is one of the best ways to stay motivated. Maybe you enjoyed talking about your favorite color or describing your breakfast. Remember, every time you have fun with English, you're making it easier to keep learning.
We hope this reflection helps you understand your own feelings and progress. Remember, it's completely okay if some things felt a bit challenging. That's part of learning. The most important thing is that you keep practicing and enjoy the process.
Now, we're going to give you a little challenge for the week. We've covered a lot of techniques for thinking and practicing in English, and this is your chance to really put them into action. So here's our challenge for you. Every day this week, try one of the techniques we discussed and see how it feels. You could start with self-talk one day, then shadowing the next, or even writing a short journal entry in English.
And remember, it doesn't have to be a big, time-consuming effort. Even just a few minutes a day can make a difference. Try to observe any changes in how you feel when you practice in English. Do you notice that you're thinking of words a bit faster, or that forming sentences feels easier? Pay attention to these small signs of progress. They're a great reminder that every bit of practice is helping you improve.
Absolutely. And don't worry if some techniques feel easier than others. Everyone has their own strengths and areas for improvement. If shadowing feels challenging at first, maybe focus on a simpler exercise like self-talk or answering questions in English. The goal is to find what works best for you and to keep building that comfort with English each day.
And if you'd like, you can also keep a little note or journal of your practice. Write down what you did each day and how you felt. Over time, you'll have a record of your journey, and you'll be able to look back and see how far you've come. Plus, this practice log can be a great motivation boost on days when you might feel less motivated.
So, to recap, this week's challenge is simple. Try one of the techniques each day, even if it's just for a few minutes. Pay attention to any changes you notice in your fluency, and remember that even small steps can lead to big progress over time.
Thank you for joining us in this interactive section. We hope this practice was helpful and that you feel more confident and motivated to keep working on your English. Remember, every bit of effort counts, and we're here cheering you on each step of the way.
Absolutely! Keep up the great work, and we can't wait to hear about your progress. See you in the next episode, and happy practicing!
One of the most important things you can do to stay consistent in your English learning journey is to set small, realistic goals. Start with something that feels very manageable, like thinking in English for just 5 minutes a day. This could be as simple as spending 5 minutes in the morning going over your plans for the day in English. Once you're comfortable with that, gradually increase the time. Maybe after a week, you bump it up to 10 minutes, or add in some evening reflection in English. These small goals add up over time, and they help you build consistency without feeling overwhelmed. Yes, exactly. Small goals not only make the process less intimidating, but they also give you a sense of accomplishment every day. Each time you hit a goal, it's a little victory that motivates you to keep going. Think of these goals as tiny steps up a staircase. One by one, they're leading you toward fluency. And remember, it's okay if some days are easier than others. The important part is that you're moving forward, even if it's just 5 minutes at a time. Learning English, or any language, doesn't have to feel like a chore. One of the best ways to stay consistent is to make the process enjoyable. Find activities that you already love and incorporate English into them. For example, if you love music, spend some time each day listening to English songs and try to follow the lyrics. Not only will this help you practice listening, but it's a fun way to immerse yourself in English without it feeling like hard work.
Or if you're into comedy, why not watch some English comedy shows or stand-up specials? Humor can be a fantastic way to learn conversational phrases, slang, and even cultural references. Plus, when you're laughing, it doesn't feel like studying. Try to find something that makes you smile or laugh. It keeps learning light and makes you more likely to stick with it.
And it's true that when we enjoy something, we naturally want to do it more often. Learning through fun content makes English feel like a part of your life, not just a subject to study. You're no longer counting down the minutes. You're enjoying the experience. So find what excites you, whether it's watching a favorite show, listening to music, or reading an interesting article. and make that part of your daily practice. Another helpful tip for staying consistent is to reward yourself for your efforts, even the small ones. Learning a language is a big commitment, and celebrating the small milestones can keep you motivated along the way. For instance, if you've been practicing thinking in English for an entire day, treat yourself to something you enjoy. It doesn't have to be anything big: a nice coffee, a favorite snack, or even a little break to do something you love.
Exactly. Celebrating small successes helps reinforce the habit. Every time you reward yourself, you're reminding yourself that progress is worth celebrating, no matter how small it might seem. So, if you notice yourself thinking in English automatically, or if you successfully complete a week of practicing your daily goals, take a moment to acknowledge that effort. Language learning is a journey, and it's important to appreciate each step along the way.
Yes, and these rewards don't just keep you motivated. They also help create a positive association with learning English. When you reward yourself, your brain starts to see English practice as something enjoyable, something to look forward to. So don't hesitate to celebrate your progress, even if it's just a few minutes of thinking in English or finishing a short journal entry. Every bit counts.
Learning English doesn't have to be a solo journey. Joining an online English learning group can be a fantastic way to stay consistent. When you're part of a community, you have people to share your progress with, ask questions, and even practice speaking or writing together. Many online groups have regular activities, discussions, and challenges, which can help keep you motivated and engaged.
Yes, and online groups create a sense of accountability. When you know you're part of a group where everyone is working towards similar goals, it feels more natural to keep showing up and practicing. Plus, it's incredibly encouraging to see other learners making progress. You can share tips, offer support, and learn from each other's experiences. Whether it's a Facebook group, a chat group, or a learning platform, these communities can provide a huge boost to your consistency.
Another great thing about online groups is that you can practice conversational English in a safe, supportive environment. Many groups have members from around the world, so you get a chance to experience different accents, ways of speaking, and perspectives. It's a great way to broaden your understanding of English as a global language and build confidence in speaking. And it makes learning English feel like being part of a big, supportive family.
That's a really good point. Sometimes when we're learning on our own, it's easy to get discouraged or lose motivation. But when you're part of a group, you feel connected, and you're reminded that you're not alone on this journey. Everyone in the group is going through the same challenges and successes, and that shared experience can be very motivating.
Consistency doesn't mean perfection, it just means sticking with it. Even if you can't practice every single day, don't worry. What's important is that you keep coming back, even if it's just for a few minutes at a time. Remember, each bit of practice adds up over time.
And learning a language is a journey, not a race. Celebrate each small step. Enjoy the process. And remember that progress is being made, even if it's slower than you expected. Stay consistent, keep it fun, and before you know it, thinking and speaking in English will start to feel natural.
We're so proud of you for making the effort to learn and grow. Thank you for listening, and keep up the great work. You've got this. All right, before we wrap up, let's quickly go over the main tips we covered today. First, we talked about starting with simple phrases. Just begin by thinking in English with easy sentences like, I'm hungry or I'm going to bed. This helps you get comfortable without feeling overwhelmed. Then we moved on to narrating your day. As you go through each activity, describe what you're doing in English. You're brushing your teeth? Say to yourself, I'm brushing my teeth. It's about making English a natural part of your thought process.
Yes, and another great tip is to ask yourself questions in English. It could be as simple as, what should I wear today? Or, what will I have for lunch? Questions are a great way to engage your mind in English. We also shared exercises like shadowing, where you repeat what an English speaker says to practice intonation, rhythm, and pronunciation. And don't forget self-talk. where you hold mini conversations with yourself or imagine dialogues. Both shadowing and self-talk help build fluency and make you feel more at ease with English.
Exactly. And we can't forget the importance of exercises like keeping an English journal. Writing down a few sentences each day about your experiences or your thoughts is a great way to process in English. Plus, imagining conversations in English helps you prepare for real-life situations. And remember, thinking in English doesn't happen overnight. But with these small steps and practices, you're getting closer each day to making English feel natural.
And here's something important to keep in mind. Learning to think in English is like learning any new skill. It takes time, it takes practice, and most of all, it takes patience with yourself. There will be days when it feels challenging, and there will be times when you make mistakes. But that's completely okay. Mistakes are just part of the journey, and each time you practice, you're getting one step closer to fluency. Remember, it's about progress, not perfection.
Yes, absolutely. Each time you think in English, even if it's just for a few moments, you're building a habit. And over time, those small moments add up. You might not see immediate results, but one day you'll notice that thinking and speaking in English feels more natural. So, don't be hard on yourself. Celebrate each small success, each sentence you think in English, and each word that comes more easily to you. This journey is about growth, and every bit of practice counts.
We really want to encourage you to keep going, even if the progress feels slow. Imagine where you could be a few months from now, or even a year from now, if you keep practicing every day. Soon enough, you'll start to see real changes in the way you think and communicate. Remember, you're not alone in this journey. We're here with you every step of the way, cheering you on. And just know, you have all the tools you need to succeed. Just keep practicing and believe in yourself.
Well, that brings us to the end of today's episode. We hope you found these tips and exercises useful and that you're feeling inspired to start thinking in English a little more each day. We're so grateful to have you with us on this journey, and we're really proud of the effort you're putting in to improve your fluency.
Thank you all for listening. Remember, learning a language is one of the most rewarding things you can do. It opens up new opportunities, lets you connect with more people, and gives you a new way of seeing the world. So keep at it, even on the challenging days, and know that every bit of effort is worth it.
Before we go, we want to give you a little hint about our next episode. We'll be diving into a topic that's not only fun, but also incredibly helpful for learning English. You won't want to miss it. Let's just say it involves a lot of creativity and a lot of expression. Stay tuned.
Yes, we're really excited for the next episode, and we think it'll be a great way to keep expanding your English skills in a fun and interesting way. So make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, so you don't miss out on that.
Thanks again for joining us today. Keep practicing, keep thinking in English, and remember, every small step is a step closer to fluency. We believe in you, and we'll see you next time.
Bye for now, everyone. Keep up the great work, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
Take care and happy learning.